evening and welcome to Real Talk, where every Sunday night we offer educational opportunities and talk about real topics, real issues, and offer real solutions. Tonight, I'm really honored to have my friend Thaty here. She is a friend and a colleague, and we have worked together for many years. You can read her full bio in the feed and read about her business in the feed, but Thaty has long been an advocate for educating and empowering those who are working in the in-home childcare profession as nannies and newborn care specialists and other domestic workers as well, so that they feel appreciated, that they're paid well for the important work that they do. And she has been very active in particular in the National Domestic Workers Association as well. So there'll be a lot of information in the feed where you can learn a little bit more about her. But welcome, Thaty. We're glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So tonight we are going to talk with Thaty about standing your ground in our current market, kind of why this matters, why it's important right now, even more so than it's been in the last several years. But this is a topic that's relevant even outside of a time when our world is in crisis. This pandemic has created a lot of upheaval in the nanny and the newborn care specialist market and the domestic household market, whether you're a housekeeper, a chef, no matter what your role is, it's really had a massive impact on our industry. So, Thaty, can you tell us a little bit about what you have seen, what you've heard, what people have shared with you about these changes that our industry is experiencing and kind of what's going on? What do you know?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of what we're hearing, it's really about the uncertainty, right? And the scary times ahead. So this is something that's been kind of what's been going on, like with agencies, they're saying that the job market will change and the economy in general. Everybody's talking about how, about the unemployment rates and how, it might take 2 years actually for the economy to bounce back. So there's a lot of like fear, it's the state of fear. People are really thinking, getting worried and, with that scarcity mentality. And I think that's worsened because we are in an industry that in general already doesn't have a lot of recognition, right? In general already our, the going rate, for nannies is actually like a lower pay. So for me, that makes it even more worried how we may be, kind of falling into the fear. And once again, like for us or for the childcare industry to even, it's not, I call like a setback, but even going lower than what the standard was already, like the minimum wage and all that, it's something very worrisome. So I'd like to talk about how maybe we don't need to just feed on this fear or in everything that we keep hearing, right? It doesn't, we know I'm not going to come here and say, okay, this is not reality. We're not going to just paint like, optimistic and pretend that's not happening. But I think it's important to know what are the opportunities that we have now, instead of just focusing on the fear, on the, the loss of jobs and, how everything is going to be worse afterwards. So let's, for me, it's all about shifting the perspective, right? So let's focus about what this pandemic, what did COVID did for our industry that's actually good. And then once we start talking about it and we see the opportunities that it brought us, maybe we can find ways that we can actually, okay, how can we bounce back, or maybe just stand on our ground. I think that's the minimum. We want to stand because we fought so long to get to where we are right now in terms of rights and protections for workers. So that's something we can't afford to lose it. We can't afford to go back and, start saying yes to everything, to lower paid jobs, to job creeps, like what we see now and what, talking to agencies, they keep saying, and I keep seeing this too, which drives me crazy. It's like now nannies have more work, more things to do the parents are requiring for less pay. And that's not okay. So that's why I feel it's really important now more than ever for us to know how to say, okay, this is the ground, these are our skills, and, kind of stand on our ground, knowing what our value is, and not just letting the fear, the scarcity of the whole narrative that we keep hearing about the economy crumbling, get to us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's actually kind of ironic that we're seeing these requests for more work and lower pay. At the same time, we're also hearing a lot of parents who are at home taking care of their own kids going, wow, I had no idea how hard your job really is. And I had no idea the skill set that you bring to this job until I'm the one stuck doing it all day long, every day. Whether they're working from home or just needing to be at home regardless, it's changed that whole dynamic. Are you hearing those same sorts of things from parents?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is really what I call the opportunity. This is what we are hearing from parent groups, from mom sharing how hard it is. So it's like we really need to kind of grab on that when they hear, like, they understanding now how hard it is, right? So we can't let them get away with, if they come and ask us to do all these things and still wanting to pay less. Like, now they know, now they are experiencing. And now more than ever, we need to take advantage of that. We need to seize this opportunity that now they get it, right? And now we come back as like we're the professionals. We've been doing this for a while. We got this. This is no big deal for us. So this is where I feel like it's really the opportunity for nannies right now to really come, confidently and so like, yeah, it is hard work. It's never been easy, and we love it, right? We do it because we love. So that's why it's like this is really like the opportunity that we have, and we really need to seize. We really need to, learn how to sell ourselves and kind of how to say like articulate how to put that package together for parents that are going to require for so many things. Then we need to come back and with that knowledge that parents now have, knowing how difficult it is and knowing how much skills it takes, we need to put all that together so we are able to really make the most out of this opportunity. It's something that it never happened to us before, right? I mean, sometimes I always joke when it's the end of the school year, you can take a little bit of advantage of that for new hires in September, because then if you're working with school age kids, then if the parents just spend the whole summer with them, then you still have a little room there for them to remember, like now we're back. But this is something that hasn't happened before, so it's really a unique opportunity we have right now.
Yeah, I agree. So, what tips would you have for nannies and for newborn care specialists and other domestic workers in terms of what they can do specifically to kind of organize themselves, to get ready for this, to kind of position themselves so that they do have that ground to stand on and they feel confident? Because a lot of times, as you and I both know, that confidence is what makes all the difference between a yes and a no.
Yep. So I need to say that because even I have like some people ask me to teach negotiation. I always tell them I don't teach my negotiation class without my confidence class because without the confidence, it's not going to work, right? So absolutely, I think especially now, even if nannies are out of work or if they have some extra time, it's really important to take advantage and actually organize themselves, as you said, work on their LinkedIn profile. Everybody knows, like I talk about this like crazy because parents are on LinkedIn and this is your online resume, right? It's your first, what do we call like first impressions matter. And that's where you can actually wow them before you even get to talk to them. You can have your experience there, your training. If if you have time, again, go after training. I think it's more than ever now. It's really important for us to show that this is how we got the skills, right? We have the experience, but we also have the education back, to back it up. And so we know how to even like articulate what it takes, like what we're doing. I think this is also another thing, especially sometimes seasoned nannies, we know they know, right? We know they have the knowledge, they know how to do stuff. But sometimes if they don't know how to convey to parents and articulate what they're doing, what their skills are, parents are not going to get it, right? It's going to take some experience, like for parents to see what they're doing. But if you're looking, if you're seeking to get hired, that doesn't happen until we're on the job. So they really need to know also how to articulate their skills, how to package everything to give to parents so they know what you're bringing to the table. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity, to get classes, take classes if you're being meaning to take them, invest in yourself. It's really everybody knows how I feel about education, right? I'm always in classes. It's never ending for me, and I'm passionate about it because also in our field, things change it all the time. So you can't be too proud to say like, oh, I've taken everything. I mean, I've been schooled forever. So, take advantage. We have lots of free offers right now. In general, in the industry, you can find free education. Like you really don't get educated if you don't want to, honestly, because there are resources really like for everybody, for every budget. So I would say definitely invest in yourself. Look it out for your online presence. So take a look on LinkedIn. Take a look at how your Facebook looks, because parents will definitely Google you if you're talking to them. They're going to know who this person that's going to be taking care of their kids are. put together an online portfolio so then you can also share with parents, maybe put activities that you have been doing with kids. One thing that I also love about LinkedIn is how you can use that to position yourself as a leader or as a professional really in the industry. LinkedIn has options. We say that's the professional Facebook, right? If you're going to share something, then you can share something professional on LinkedIn. And it also gives opportunities to write articles and to write. So I think I tell them, like, you can share activities you do with the kids in your LinkedIn feed, right? You can do share blog posts, recipes, things, all of that stuff. You can use that, and then you can use this time, even if you're out of work. It shows that you're still relevant. You're still connected to the industry. You're still investing your time, in the industry of how it's going to make you a better nanny, and you're sharing your knowledge, and parents definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of education and investing in yourself, you're definitely preaching to the choir when you're talking to me.
Yeah,
Because I'm
absolutely.
all about it all the time. And I'm still 35 years into this. I took, I think, 7 classes in 2019.
Wow.
And I never stop learning. I love it. And I say all the time, the day that you think you know it all and that you don't have anything else to learn is the day you should retire.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yes.
absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I also think it's really important to get your resume updated and double check your facts on your resume. Make sure you don't have any mistakes in there. Make sure that you reach out to references too. And hey, I'm looking for a new position. I just wanted to let you know you might get some phone calls so it doesn't, take them by surprise. Things like that for sure. And of course, we also believe it's more important than ever to invest in yourself right now. There's no greater investment that anybody can ever make than in themselves. And aside from the skills, that's where I think a lot of the confidence comes in sometimes.
Yeah.
We feel much more confident when we're really ready to go in there. Do you have any suggestions for people who need to brush up on their interviewing skills?
Yes. I mean, I have a background in theater, so talking to the mirror, that's not a problem to me. But I always tell people, yes, you should be looking yourself in the mirror, ask questions, have a friend to go over with you. One tip that I give in my confidence class is for you to have like a confidence file. So all the awesome things that people said about you, or all the also accomplishments and all the stuff you've done, put it together so you can review and kind of give yourself in the back, because we don't do that, right? It's really hard for us to actually go back like, oh yeah, I did that. Like and people's like, oh, it was nothing. Like we don't even know how to take compliments. So I figure like this is something that you can do. Get used and get comfortable, because you do need to show off your skills. You need to actually talk about them. And I feel like this is the simple way you can start. It's like, oh yes, I did. Oh yes, this parent did say this, and kind of hone on those good skills that hopefully you're passionate about, and it shows, right? That's why you're getting that compliment. That's why you're getting those testimonials. And then know it how you're going to put it in there in your resume, and have friends, look it up. I know there are a lot of mentor programs in Facebook groups from our nanny groups, really, that, nannies are more than happy to share and look over each other's resume. So take advantage of that. And, I think it's, as I said, like take classes. There are free classes, you can look it up. There are classes you can invest in yourself. There are payment plans for a lot of things. So really, there's really no excuse for you to not taking the advantage of actually getting something recent. I think it is important for you to have some recent stuff in your resume, even if you're out of work, but some recent class, conference, or something to put in there that's going to show that, hey, I'm still invested, right? So it doesn't have that 2-3 year gap since your last took a childcare course. So I think this is definitely important, so you don't have gaps in education too, because a lot of people talk about the gap in experience, and I'm like, what about education? Our field is always changing, right? And we need to show them that if we're invested, that if we are professionals, then we are looking for these opportunities. We are in tune with what's coming out. So pay attention to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And we hear from students all the time, if they've been in a position longer term, that our training can kind of overcome that gap objection that we sometimes hear from parents about, hey, you haven't worked with a baby in a while. Yeah. But I want somebody with lots of experience, and that training can overcome it. So I absolutely agree with you.
I mean, education, just to put a like quick point, like education, and even if you're active in your community, in the nanny community, that will also bridge a gap from unemployment. So if you're being out of work, let's say for 3-4 months, and I remember there's and I'm not going to say names, but that was a nanny friend, of mine a couple years ago. She was unemployed for almost 2 years. And I remember I actually got to hear her on an interview, and I'm like, dude, no, that's not, the way she was saying a few things. And so I was able to actually see her in action and kind of give the feedback. It's like, this is what you're going to do. And voila, like in a week, like she had a job and, her whole career changed. But this is also the thing, like you take that time, you can say another friend, like you just got them to start writing blogs and articles. So the gap became like, okay, this is my investment in my learning, right? So they didn't see that as something like, oh, you weren't doing nothing. You're investing in your knowledge, you're investing like in positioning yourself also in the industry. So absolutely.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It has really taken our industry. You and I both been in this a long time. It's taken a long time for our industry, which is still imperfect. It's still growing. It's still changing, to get where it is now, and where we can advocate for, and where we have a National Domestic Workers Association, a national movement to really support fair and legal pay. And we now have the Fair and Legal Pay Initiative. There's a lot of things that are going on in our industry. But if we don't kind of continue to advocate, I think there's a really big chance that we could go really far back. What do you think about that? And what do you think we should do as an industry?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, right? That's really my fear. I'm not worried about the economy and everything. My fear is really for us to, go back in history. Like we worked so hard to get to where we are now, to get protections, to get the work agreement, to, have boundaries within like what's a nanny job and what's something that, okay, it's a housekeeper job. And it is my fear that people are worried about, having to put food on the table and they would just say yes to everything, right? So I think it's really important to still know that you have rights. Get familiar with them. There are several states, there are 9 states that have their, own laws right now for domestic workers. We have a federal bill that was introduced, which, might still take a few years to pass, but be familiar with it. And again, those things are the ground. Like what we don't need to wait for a lot to pass to actually put them in a contract and kind of expect that. And I always say, like, if we see ourselves as professional, we need to value ourselves first, right? Because as much as we want to believe that people are awesome and amazing, they're not just gonna come to us like, oh, would you like a 6-week vacation? It's not gonna happen, right? They're thinking about them and their families, and we need to, kind of know what's gonna do it for us, and we need to be very clear and what's right, what's part of something that they can expect, or require you to do. So I think it's really important to get to know your rights, do your research. The National Domestic Work Alliance put together a going back to work plan, which is really amazing now for nannies post-pandemic. And it's so detailed, it's for free. So look it up. I can put links in here, which gives like a guideline both to share with parents and for nannies to know like things to watch out, job creeps, right? Things that maybe wasn't your part, but now they're requiring you to do. So, and where is the responsibility for the parents now? Like a lot of them maybe are just requiring a lot of safety and all this stuff from the nanny, but how can the nanny, the caregiver, be sure that the parents are also taking those precautions, that they're also, doing their part, because, the nanny's not just there, they have their family at home and all that. So I think it's really important to actually look it over and, and resist the urge really to make decisions into fear, right? I think that's really my, what I think I'm like a little bit scared too, but I think I see a lot of nannies because they're so fearful, they will just give in and something that they wouldn't. And, and I say this because even myself, so when I got my hours cut in the beginning of the pandemic, I found myself saying yes to things that I was like, I cannot believe I said that. And that was like for 2 weeks, I was like, if I'm doing that, I can only imagine what other nannies are doing. If like I'm the advocate, if I'm the person who is like fighting. So that got to me for a month, and I was like, this is not right. This is not right. And then, I look at the results like, okay, that's right. So I had the conversation. It didn't go very well. We were kind of bickering for like a week or so. but it is important to actually, stand your ground. Don't give in, don't come in and don't make decisions out of fear. And for me, that experience alone, like, taught me so much. Is something that I really want to share with nannies, because if you just are looking at the bad stuff and the negative, that's all you're going to see, right? And then it was almost like for me, like a pick me up moment. It's like, Thaty, come on, listen to your own advice. Stop being, doing the pity party, and let's, roll your sleeve and let's do it. And I started looking for jobs, and here I found a lot of jobs that were, again, asking for a lot of things from the nanny for lower pay. But then the parent would come back, is like, of course, we are willing to negotiate based on your higher set of skills. Of course, you don't need to, don't get caught up on this price, because we're totally, like I had 3 parents saying that, like from 3 messages. It was like, oh, there's hope. So that made me feel like, yes, parents will still acknowledge what you're going to be bringing to the table. They still know how hard the work is. So we really can't just be focusing on the negative. We really need to be open and allowing us to, how can I say, to prosper, right? We don't need to accept that everything is going to be bad and, the economy is going to crash and we need to take the bad jobs. So we need to also still be hopeful and kind of not give in and take decisions out of fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you and I both know sometimes we need to take a job to make sure that there's food on the table and that there's a roof over our head. But those don't have to be long term. Those can be just a stopgap to kind of get you through things. And you can keep looking while you're in that kind of position. What advice would you have for somebody who's in that position who says, Thaty, you know what, that's great. I understand what you're saying, but right now, if I don't work, I can't pay my rent next month, or I can't feed my kids. What advice would you have for somebody to negotiate that, where they might have to do that, but they need to view it as a temporary thing?
And I work with a lot of folks in the community here that are in that situation, that if they don't take the job, they don't have food on the table for their kids, right? And I always say, like, there is no shame. I can preach here and talk about like all the things you can get, but there's no shame in getting a bridge job or accepting a job that, it's something that's going to put your food in the table next week, but maybe it's not going to fill up all your bills. The thing that I urge nannies to do it, because some of them, I'm working with one and she's a sweetheart, but they think too much about others and she's not thinking about herself. And I'm like, darling, you don't have money to put food on the table. You can't just think about them and not think about you and, the food. So the goal is to really make sure that this is a bridge, right? And you're not going to be set on that one for long. You're not going to settle. You're not going to stop looking for work once you get that one. And the other thing is, I always tell them, it doesn't mean that now you need to get another part-time job, to kind of make it up a full-time job. And a lot of nannies do that. And they, you're just going to get tired. And I always say, like, 2 or 3 bad jobs doesn't make up a good one, right? Mm-hmm. You still need to be there temporarily, keep looking, and trying to, and I've got situations where I'll go and I always say, like, I want to do a trial, right? And there was summer position that I came in, and in 2 months I knew, like, this is not going to be the position for me. Definitely not a good fit. But I wouldn't say no until, I actually did say no. She never let me, kind of go. But I was, even if it's a contract, like, can you do it 3 months? Like, no, I would say, like, I will come here until you find someone. But honestly, I was there until I found something, right? Because I had already said that I wasn't happy, that I didn't want to go back there. I mean, I didn't say that I wasn't happy. Just it wasn't really a good fit, right? It was, a lot of more hours than what I wanted to work. But it's something that you can talk to them about extending maybe a trial. So instead of doing a 2-week trial, because you're still searching, maybe just make it a month trial or a 3-month trial. So this way you have something guaranteed. You're not completely signed up, and they're not going to be blackmailing you or bad mouthing you in case you leave, because then you're clear. It's like, no, I'm not signing a long-term contract. I want to see how this goes. So you can do that. And I think really the important thing is just, like, don't stop searching. Don't think that, and don't look for another, just part-time job. Again, I think you can do it if you need to put food on the table, but the goal is not to settle for those. The goal is to keep looking so you can actually, let those behind and then go to a job that really meets your needs. And I think it's really important for, nannies, caregivers, or everyone really, when you're going through a job search, you need to know what's your line on the ground. What is the minimum amount that you're going to walk away if they offer something lower than that? because it's not going to pay your bills. Then how can you need to, they need to meet your basic needs, right? Rent, food, and all of this stuff. So you need to know your numbers, and that's an exercise that some nannies, I can say, like, they don't do it before they go to the job. So they really need to know, like, what it takes for them to pay all their bills, what it takes for them to bring food on the table, and know when to walk away from those situations if it's not doing it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing that I share with people a lot of times also is knowing what things are. So you said your line on the ground. For me, it's like, what is your hard no? What are your things that you can be flexible on? What are those things you're willing to be flexible on? Or maybe you're willing to be flexible on, look, I'll do this while you're still working from home, but once you go back to work, I'm not going to do it anymore. You have to know those things you're flexible on and those things that are just a hard no for you. And, I tell people illegal pay and verbal or physical or sexual abuse or harassment, none of those things are ever acceptable. And, I see and hear from so many people that are in rough situations like that. Are there resources that you know about, or are there people that can help if somebody might be in that kind of situation? And this conversation kind of opens their eyes a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, with the NDWA, the National Domestic Work Alliance, we have lots of resources, from rescuing folks from really abuse and even human trafficking, to really educating them about their rights, knowing about retaliation. So here, for example, in Massachusetts, it's illegal for a parent to, like, if you stand your ground, it's like, okay, I'm not going to work for you because you're pay me under the table. They can go back and retaliate, and that they're going to be in trouble too. And I actually just spoke with a parent 2 weeks ago, and she started wanting to put the blame on the nanny. It's like, oh, but she didn't say, so I went to report her. I was like, well, you can't do that, and if you do it, you're going to be in trouble too, because it was on you to actually do your part to see what you could have done and the hiring practices and all that. So there's definitely a lot of resources out there. I can definitely share some in here. You really don't have to suffer through abuse. I mean, we understand the whole thing. Like, and I work with a lot of this population where it's hard. We will never understand, right? What they're like, what makes one going through. One thing I share, even about my own au pair experience, I was so, like, it was my dream to come here in the U.S. and I've been so blessed to have had a wonderful family. I honestly don't know if I would have spoken up if I had suffered abuse, because just the fear of being sent back home or going back for something that I worked for 12 years to be here. I don't know. I figure like maybe it would be something that I would have to endure. Right. And I think that's a lot of the conversations our parents have today. And I keep telling, like, it's not like that there are laws to protect that I didn't know. So it's really important to educate yourself, reach out for help. And because there's a lot of, we're still an isolated industry, right? Or like when they're doing, like, it's funny, we have our groups, our Facebook and our community in there, but there are millions. They're offline. They're still not part. I always say, like, the nannies on Facebook and groups, like, we are the 2% because we're together, but maybe not even 2%. But there's like the whole community is still out there without connection, without nanny friends, without the conversations that we're having. So we really to really get down once playgrounds open and start having those conversations and, extend a hand and kind of educate those around us. And, because it's all about spreading the word, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, to me, it's just such a foreign concept to not have colleagues, because I have for so many years been so big and an active part of the nanny community for almost my entire 35-year career in this industry.
Yeah.
But I still see nannies, even in nanny groups today, who say, wow, I had no idea there were other people in this country doing the work that I do. And yet the reality is there are over 1 million nannies just in the US alone. And on a worldwide scale, it's even bigger than that. So yeah, absolutely. The communities that we're involved in are really just a drop in the bucket. And so that spreading the word in our communities, not just online, but offline as well, is so, so important.
Yeah, here at Harvard, we do ongoing outreach on playgrounds. So it's something that, and again, we're doing it every week, and every week you find nannies that had no idea, never heard of it, rights and protections and all, or even like communities of nannies. So so it's something that we've been doing for several years, and we continue to do it, and we continue to find nannies that, we're still isolated and, thinking that I always share like how I thought I was crazy because I wanted to be a nanny, right? Because I also didn't know that, it could have been chosen as a profession, and I didn't know about Nanny Palooza, INA, and all of that stuff. So yeah, they're still out there, and they need us to come and, bring them to our community.
Absolutely. So much great information here tonight. Thaty, is there anything else that you want to share with everybody before we kind of wrap up for the evening?
Um, I think that's it. I mean, I always make myself available. I'm super busy, but I do get back to people. I promise. I tell them like, I'm always, I will take a call if you're in an emergency, like, please reach out. I'm always happy to help. I will, as I said, like I will make it an offer and just make it available for viewers to get the professional nanny challenge that I have. So it's a 5 day, but I give 10 with a day break in case you need more than a day to actually get your stuff together. And it basically walks them through like really getting a resume, getting your LinkedIn profile up. So it's just me like kind of challenging them to kind of step up their game and see how they're gonna be showing themselves in the profession anywhere. And I think that maybe can jumpstart them in their, if they're going to be looking for a job, or even now just to keep yourself going and growing, right? So I'll be happy to share that. But in general, really, I want to wish everybody a, how can I say, like I want everybody not to think about the fearful future, right? I want you to really not give in. Don't make decisions based out of fear. Educate yourself on your rights, and get a clear picture of what you want, and then let's just have a plan and go get it.
Yeah, absolutely. All this information about Thaty, her business, and her offer is going to be in the feed, so you can find all that there. But Thaty, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I so appreciate you taking your time, sharing your expertise, sharing your passion, and all these tips that really make a difference for people who are working in the in-home industry, for sure.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
thank
you
you,
all for
everybody.
joining us tonight. If you have questions for Thaty, please put them in the feed and tag her or tag Newborn Care Solutions, and we will make sure that she knows about it and can get on there to answer for you. Especially if you're watching this in replay, we will still commit to getting you those answers. And be sure that you join us here every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Real Talk, where we offer educational opportunities and talk about real topics, real issues, and offer real solutions. Have a good night.